KoKo TV.
Once upon a time, in a small village beside a great green forest, there lived a kind little girl who was loved by everyone. Her grandmother adored her most of all, and had sewn her a red cloak with a hood. The girl wore it everywhere, and soon everyone called her Little Red Riding Hood. One sunny morning, her mother said gently, "Grandmother isn't feeling well. Please take her this basket with cake and fruit. Stay on the path and don't talk to strangers." "I will, Mother," said Little Red Riding Hood, and she kissed her goodbye and set off down the forest trail. The forest was cool and bright, with sunlight slipping through the leaves. Birds sang, and the girl skipped along happily. After a while, she met a wolf. She didn't know he was dangerous, and she forgot what her mother had told her about strangers. The wolf's fur shimmered gray in the shade, and his voice was deep and smooth. "Good morning," said the wolf, pretending to sound friendly. "Good morning," said Little Red Riding Hood politely. "Where are you going so early?" he asked in a curious, silky tone. "To my grandmother's house," she answered. "She lives on the far side of the forest."
"What a thoughtful girl you are. Why not pick her some flowers? They would make her smile."
The girl thought that was a lovely idea and stepped off the path to gather a few blossoms. She forgot all about her promise. While she picked flowers, the sly wolf trotted swiftly down the straight path to Grandmother's cottage. He knocked softly on the door. "Who is there?" called the grandmother, her voice thin and tired.
"It's me, Little Red Riding Hood,"
said the wolf, using a high, pretending to be a child voice. "Lift the latch and come in," said the grandmother. The wolf lifted the latch, stepped inside, and before she could move, he swallowed the poor grandmother whole. Then he found her nightcap, put it on, climbed into her bed, and pulled the blanket up to his chin. A few minutes later, Little Red Riding Hood reached the cottage. The door was half open. She stepped inside softly and said, "Good morning, grandmother." But there was no answer. She went closer and saw someone lying in bed. The room felt dark and still. "Oh, grandmother," she said, "what big eyes you have! All the better to see you with, my dear," answered the wolf in a shaky old lady voice. "And what big ears you have! All the better to hear you with," he said, struggling to keep his deep voice high. "And what big teeth you have! All the better to eat you with," roared the wolf, his voice suddenly loud and booming, and he leapt from the bed. Little Red Riding Hood shrieked and tried to run, but the hungry wolf grabbed her and swallowed her whole in one big gulp. Now the wolf was very full and very tired. He lay down in the bed, pulled up the blanket, and soon began to snore, a deep, rumbling snore that shook the little cottage. A woodsman passing by heard the noise and stopped. "That doesn't sound like the old woman," he thought. He looked through the window and saw the wolf's great round belly rising and falling. He burst through the door, grabbed the wolf by the legs, and turned him upside down. "Let's see what you've stolen, you greedy beast," he shouted. He shook and shook until out tumbled Little Red Riding Hood, and then Grandmother. Both were frightened but unharmed. The three of them stood there, staring at the stunned wolf. Then, together, they chased him out of the cottage and deep into the forest. The wolf ran for his life and was never seen again. Grandmother sank into her chair and said, laughing weakly, "That will teach him." Little Red Riding Hood hugged her tightly. "I'll never forget again," she whispered. "I'll never, ever talk to strangers." And from that day on, whenever she walked through the forest, she kept to the path, and the woods were peaceful ever after. The end.